Hi everyone, Michael here, and this week marks a new chapter for the Startup Sessions. Starting today, I'm going to be interviewing experts on topics that have been most requested by you guys, the viewers and listeners of the show. There's going to be a more focused theme each and every month, allowing me to dive deeper on the subjects that are the most requested by you. April's focus will be creating a successful side hustle. Everything you need to know about starting a meaningful business on the side. So get ready for more focus, amazing experts, and better results, all coming to you right now on a brand new exciting episode of the Startup Sessions. Welcome to the Startup Sessions, the #1 web show and podcast for trusting your gut, breaking the rules, and starting something meaningful, featuring in-depth interviews with acclaimed creative entrepreneurs that have succeeded at building their own remarkable businesses. I'm your host, Michael Knouse, and today I have launch expert and former side hustler Anne Samoilov on the show. Anne is in the business of getting you to launch your ideas, your next project, your next business, maybe a blog or an event, maybe even a physical product. Anne has spent the last decade plus helping entrepreneurs, digital artists, authors, video game developers, and healers to launch their big ideas out into the world. So I am very excited to bring you this first episode in a series of interviews dedicated to helping you start a side hustle project and get your ideas launched. It's all coming to you right now on episode 23 of the Startup Sessions. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Startup Sessions. You know, I've got an incredible expert here with us today. I'm joined by launch expert Anne Samoilov. Welcome to the show, Anne.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you here. So let me tell everyone a little bit about Anne. She's a full-time mom. She's a business and launch strategist whose main business is getting you to launch your ideas. No matter what those are, whether it's your next project, a business, a blog, a podcast, if you can launch it, she's got experience with it. So Anne is founder of her company and creator of the renowned Fearless Launching program. And she hosts the Fearless Launching podcast as well, which is amazing. I've had a chance to check that out and listen to some of the shows. So it's a great resource at annesamoilov.com, and I'll link that up in the show notes. So Anne's been working on startup teams for a while now, right? You've got a lot of experience, years and years and years of helping people start things. You've worked for new companies, you've worked for new projects. You're really helping people in that critical startup process with what it is that you do, and you've nailed it. You've got it down. And so I'm super excited to have you on the show to pick your brain. And I want to focus on two things today, Anne, since we're kind of starting out with this new focus on having themes for the different months on the Startup Sessions. And this month is the Side Hustle Month. I'd like to talk about, how is it possible for an entrepreneur to start something on the side while working for someone else? And then secondly, I want to focus on maybe some of the top launch mistakes that people make. Sound good?
That sounds great.
Cool. Well, let's jump right into it then. First of all, tell us a little bit about your background to give people a flavor for you and what prepared you to become really the expert that you are at launching.
Well, it's funny because I kind of only put that whole piece together really recently, like in the last year. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that was preparing me. But so I started in working in production. In Los Angeles, working on a number of TV shows, movies, video games, as the production manager, as the person at different levels. So my roles have always been in some level of production, and the last role that I was producing cinematics for video games. So every single role that I played just happened to be at a company that was starting or just a startup. And whether it was a startup that was started by a group of animators who wanted to create their own company, or it was a new division of a bigger company, it just happens that they were all very new businesses, really. So yeah, so that was kind of like the beginning of everything, and I guess it prepared me because I basically walked into, they were jobs for me. I was just
Yeah.
hired as, I wasn't hired in necessarily the huge decision making role in those companies at the time, but I was definitely hired to in a place where there was no infrastructure, there were no
Yeah.
systems in place, there was
Yeah.
no support. You didn't come in and then all of a sudden there was a way to request even time off in some of these places. It was sometimes a matter of hiring people from the HR accounting area all the way to someone to answer the phone. So I guess that's what prepared me for this, and I didn't even
Okay.
realize it.
Okay. I just love stories like this because, we a lot of times we are in those roles and we just kind of we land there and we develop an expertise there, and then that develops into our thing. And then we're
Yeah.
known for that. You're known as the expert for launching. So, good backstory. Many different industries, but kind of doing the similar thing that you were able to pull together and do what you do now so well. I
Yeah.
love that.
It is interesting how that happened.
I've worked for some of those startups, by the way, that didn't even know how to, request vacation or do any of that stuff. And it's
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything really, really specific, but it definitely was like we were just blazing the path as we went along. We just had to figure it out.
Yeah. You want to learn you want to do something? Well, it's not created yet, so you create it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So thank you for sharing a little bit of the background about how you came to where you are now. So now this is big. So many of my clients feel, kind of I had a guy tell me the other day, I feel trapped in my job and I want to get out, but I don't know what to do or how to start something on the side. I can't just leave my job. I've got a house and all that stuff. And from your story, I know that you worked for 3 years for someone else while you started your business on the side. And so that's really what I want to address today is talk a little bit about how did you do that? Like how did you even do that? How did you start something on the side, and develop it over the course of 3 years to the point where you said, all right, now's the time to step away and do this full time?
Yeah, well, all those other jobs kind of prepared me to just pretty much jump into any industry and, put together projects and all that kind of thing. So when I had the opportunity to work with Laura Roeder, it was more from the I need to learn point of view. And at that point, I really didn't know what there was for a business. I had no clue about it. I didn't even know what I wanted, but I did know that I wanted something. And that kind of fueled me the whole time. And just by the way, like a kind of all those back places, those back stories, those other places I worked, I was never there fully. I was always thinking and doing things on the side. Like if you read my About page, you know that I recorded an album. I always had to have like a project on the side.
Yeah.
But I never looked at that as like that I was going to create a business or something. So when I started really thinking about the whole business thing, it was really difficult. I have like a toddler running around. I, was trying to deal with my schedule with her, my husband, the rest of the family not understanding what I was doing. Visual effects, where I was before, paid way more than what I was even doing with this full-time job online.
Yeah.
And so I was struggling to get lots of resistance. But I just kept hammering away. I'm like, I'm just going to keep blogging till I get this, till I figure out what my audience is, who I'm talking to. I just kept going and going and going. But the big realization about starting the business really happened when I finally said that, wow, what I do for it actually happened after the first launch of a really big program that I worked on, one of my very first online launches, which was Marie Forleo and Laura Roeder were together working on B School. And after that, I realized that there was something there that I had discounted. I never thought of project management or everything that I learned about starting businesses as even anything that could be a business. So there was nothing, there was no big sexy idea there. But in that moment, I'm like, wow, I could probably teach people how to do this. And instead of actually just going off and doing it right away, I actually did talk to Laura. And I always say this because I want to make sure everybody knows I didn't just Laura Roeder has online business training really for social media and that kind of thing. So to me, this was like a natural project for her to do. So I actually went to her and I suggested that she do it. And I'm like, do you want to do this? And when she said no, that was my go time, and I spent the next, I would say was even like year 2 of working with her, maybe like in the middle of my working with her, maybe a year and a half in. And it took me a few months to develop the content. I flipped a switch on my blog. I started talking about that topic. And then a month later, I launched the first Fearless Launching. But the launch was like the small part of it. The day-to-day, trying to like build my business, trying to figure out where is this going. And then finally, the whole process was a lot of torture internally because I felt trapped. But I liked it, but I definitely had that struggle, and it was only, and I see you like wanting to jump in, but like I want to tell you like that the moment that it really became clear to me that I couldn't do this back and forth anymore was when I was like, okay, I'm pretty much running the company with Laura. There's no other place for me to go. Maybe money-wise, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
And Fearless Launching isn't going to be able to grow. Someone's got to grow here. And if I can't grow with Laura, or maybe but even growing with Laura, I'll always want my thing. So I knew that I had to focus fully on Fearless Launching, and I didn't come to that decision quickly. I was pushed. Laura even pushed me.
So she was saying, hey, maybe it's time. It's time. If you want to do this.
She's like, I think you're afraid to admit it. And I'm like, I was so scared on that phone call because I counted on what I made for money with her. So I didn't want, because you never know, like when you give notice with someone, they could tell you to leave that day. And I thought, I'm not ready. So I thought about it and I gave her like a 4-month notice. And it worked out. I was enough of a part of the day-to-day runnings of things. So it wasn't like you could just say, okay, bye.
Right.
So I was valuable enough to keep around for those 4 months. I needed them as much as the company did. So that was a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you might be a little concerned if someone were to say, see you later. Tomorrow's your last day. You're like,
maybe I wasn't doing as much as
maybe I wasn't that valuable. Sheesh.
I know.
Nothing like a seed of doubt right there. Okay, so you said something a few minutes ago that's so important, I think, and that was you didn't really even you had discounted your skills and your specialty about being a project manager, and I think so many people do that. Like they're like, what? What would I ever build a business around? I can't figure out what I'm good at, or I've had all these ideas in the past, but nobody would pay me for these. At what point did you really realize that this thing that I've done, project management and, just managing all of these pieces and forming it together to be able to launch something, at what point was it that you really realized, maybe this is something I should do? Maybe this is something that I could really deliver in a great way and it would be valuable to other people?
Well, it was as I became more visible on Laura's team and in the programs that she had, I was in the communities, more and more people were asking me questions. And also, and I was seeing people talk about not being able to, getting overwhelmed by all the pieces. And I just kind of slowly, I realized, I'm like, wow, okay, so it's this is a skill that I think I've been taking for granted, that I can see the big picture, that I can see all the little pieces and see see them and not get overwhelmed and just do them. But I saw a lot of people not doing it. So when I looked at the community, one of the main communities that Laura has, and then another big one that's like, people are talking about building their businesses. People were just getting stopped right and left by all these like little tasks that would drive them forward. So I think it was just during that time when I realized, when I just started looking at what people were actually struggling with. That's when I realized, I'm like, oh, I can help with this.
Okay.
It was really simple. I just saw the need there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I just wanted to hear your perspective on that, because that's an area, it seems like it takes people a while, in most cases, to really get it, to really see, oh my God, it's like been sitting in front of me this whole time, and here it is. Yeah. And now to see how you've leveraged that and what you've turned that into as your expertise is phenomenal.
Michael, like I wanted to say that like the hard thing for me was that when I was in visual effects, I actually left that, when I left NCSoft, which is the video game publisher that I worked with, when I left them, I actually quit being a project manager for like 5 years because I was so burnt out on it. So that's probably why I didn't want to admit that that was something I could build a business around, because I had a little bit of hate for it, because my role was so not creative. And I do have that part of me where I'm like, I like to see the big ideas get like, it's not just about following a spreadsheet and checking things off as they get done. And so I think I was dragging my feet to that realization because of that. Really.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you then, now, I mean, you are that go-to person that people reach out to figure out what boxes to check so you don't miss the steps. And so it's a very systematized thing. But having your own business around that, I'm guessing that you do, like you get fed with the creative part of that too, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And even when people come to me with questions and help, I like the aspect of it where it's not just a cut and dry system, but it's something that I can show them that they can do it the way they want to. You know? So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Another thing that I heard you say on, I think it was your first podcast, was you can leverage, if you're working for someone else, like you can use that time to, I think you said, test things before you go out on your own.
Yeah.
And that's something that I did. I started blogging, and then I started a little coaching on the side, and I kind of found what people were interested in, and people started slowly paying me for that. And it was this great, just this great experiment, I think, that gave me a little bit of confidence. And I think you found the same thing, right? You found, because you talked about how you were, you had several projects over the course of your career on the side. Is there anything that you would just any tips that you would offer around that, like how people can get started testing their ideas while they're still working?
Well, I think that if you've got that interest to build a business and you're working in an existing business, that in theory, let's say the company isn't going into bankruptcy, then they're doing something right. And the thing that I really learned from working with Laura, and now looking back at all the other places, are the systems that we put in place. And whether or not people want to like systems or talking about them or not, it's really like, how do things get done? And that, not even just like, how do, this is our blog post template, this is what we use to approve this and that. I'm actually talking about looking at like the company that you're in and saying, okay, these are the things that happen every single day to make this business what it is. So what if I just do those exact same things in my own business?
Yeah.
Why am I treating my business any differently than this business? So I look at those systems, just like, how does the business operate? And at a certain point with Laura's too, I would see like, wow, okay, this is what we did to grow our subscriber list. This is what I will do to grow my subscriber list, and just like apply it across the board. Actually, what helped was that I kind of mentally tricked myself into AnneSamoilov.com being just another line of projects that I'm doing at LKR.
Okay.
Because then there's no division, and you really can see what can actually like be translated directly into your own business. So always be on those lookouts for those types of things. And the other really key thing that I think you can take from where you are now is look at the players, look at the different people and the positions, and their value or not value, and like look and be like, oh, okay, I can see how that's a role that is really important. Like really like kind of play detective at your company or your job and see what roles you think are really necessary. And like you can, when you see what types of people go into those roles and do those things successfully. I mean, I know that there's like a little bit of subjective judgment that happens when you hire people, but I think you can tell if someone's doing their job well. And so you just look, you can get a lot of clues about your team that you might eventually hire. Also, the one thing that I love about bigger companies is that they've spent a lot of money and time on who their customers are. And which is interesting because like when my husband also works now in video games as well, but they know their customers like crazy. They know different segments of their customers so well. And you can learn a lot about how you can figure out who your customers are by, just seeing who are you serving? Try to answer the same questions about the place that you're working at. I'm trying to think of some other ones, but honestly, it's like it is a testing ground, and you can see if certain things work or don't work. If you're starting a blog, let's say, why not see if there's what's happening with the blog that you might have with your company? Why not see what they're doing? Like, why not see about even ads? Something that they have the resources for that you don't have yet.
Absolutely. Maybe you're working for a company that, if you're interested in social media, for example, maybe there's things that you could take on a side project and get paid for it and have the resources supplied for you to enhance the social media image of your company, or 100 other examples.
Yep.
Cool. All right. One thing I keep thinking back to, like, ways that I've things that I've gotten from your site, material that I've gotten from you. And one of the things that I found helpful that I actually just started implementing was I think it was a blog post that you wrote about just the simplicity of, like, if you're trying to figure out what people want or how they're responding to what you're trying to launch or your business, like, just go out and talk to them. Don't necessarily survey them, but connect with a handful of people face to face. Just simple, like, really keep it simple.
Be human.
Imagine, what a concept,
Imagine
right?
that, talking to other humans.
We try to get too fancy sometimes and just discount like the pure connecting with people one-on-one, having coffee, having a Skype call. What do you think of these ideas? Give me your honest feedback. And that actually caused me to set up a series of appointments, by the way, with people that are largely influencing kind of some tweaks that I'm making in my own business. Just that very simple sit down and talk with somebody about my ideas and what they need, and finding kind of that middle ground. So
I don't do it enough, honestly. Like, you get so busy. Like, when you're first starting, you've got the time. Like, talk to those, especially if you're just starting something and you have, like, 20 people or 50, even 100. If you've got even 100 people who you think are your audience and that's all you've got, talk to each one of them.
Yeah. So
somehow.
Good. Yeah. It's so good. And it's so, I don't know why, like, when I read your blog about doing that, I was like, what? Of course.
Like,
why not? Why would I not why haven't I done that? So thank you. Thanks for that. It was just like one of those moments where, like, duh, I should have done that a while ago, but so good and so valuable. All right. Let's switch gears because you are the fearless launching expert, and it needs to be talked about. I'm in the process of going to be launching some things this year, so I've been paying attention to what you have to say. And I've got just enough experience with launching stuff that I know that it can be the most stressful thing in the world, or it can go pretty smooth. And then there's always going to be hiccups and whatnot. But there's so many things that you can launch. Like I never necessarily thought of my blog or my podcast or my web show or my coaching program even as things that I could launch. And now I'm starting to rethink those things as though I could come out with a new version of my coaching. And that could be a launch, and I could really build some buzz and momentum around that. But there's so many moving pieces to a launch, and I think it's easy for people to get lazy and just kind of like gradually roll out this or that. So there's a huge margin for error in a launch. I know that because I've had those errors happen. So help us, Anne. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see people making when they go to launch something?
Well, these are ones that I've experienced myself. So like when I put these mistakes out, I'm not saying somehow that, and I've never done these ever. I'm perfect. Like there are always mistakes, but one of the biggest it's back to the systems, but one of the biggest is actually people aren't able to buy. Something's wrong with the e-commerce part of it, or someone can't sign up for something. I've seen that over and over again. If it's like an opt-in, all of a sudden there's no web form. And they're like out there getting people to sign up for stuff, and there's no way for people to get it.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. And you know what? Sometimes it happens even to the best of us. And I was just on a project in the fall, and we didn't know that the system we had chosen couldn't handle some sort of integration. And we did something that I never do, which is switching e-commerce things in the middle of the actual launch. But we had to because it wasn't tracking the affiliate sales. It wasn't we were like, this is like do or die. We've got to switch. So luckily that was a fairly smooth one, but the e-commerce. But besides that kind of more obvious mistake, one of the other mistakes is about not really offering something that people that you never even went out and found out if people wanted something. And maybe you got confirmation from one person. Oh yeah, this is good. But it wasn't even somebody who would actually buy from you, and that's troubling, and something that I actually changed in the recent update of Fearless Launching, and that is that this, and I talk about a lot, there's a few entrepreneurs that are in the whole Seattle scene up here, and we talk a lot about that customer development phase, and that how crucial it is, because you just can't skip it. You can't say, oh, I've been working on my product, and then I'm going to launch it. Well, who's involved here? Who's going to hit go? Who's going to hit yes? Yeah, and that's a huge problem, and solved, not easily, but it's solved, and there are clues to whether the offer is really wanted, and it could be clicks. You can watch if people are liking stuff, commenting, emailing you about topics you're talking about. That's where you just have to not use intuition, but just say, okay, so only 50 people opened this, but all 50 of them emailed me and said, oh my God, this is my main problem. I can't believe you wrote about this. And I was getting those. Like I know when things don't work and things do work. And I've worked on things with Laura where there wasn't the immediate response, and we were like, I guess they didn't want that. Like, so it happens even when you know your customer, but you still have to. That's why I'm a huge fan of just getting like even the free opt-in out as a launch, because it gets you in that habit of knowing that you have, of like offering things to your audience, understanding that there are going to be offers coming. So that whole audience, do people really want it? Knowing that there's a lot of mistakes that can happen in there. And another mistake is also with the offer, but it's making the products so that people don't even know it's for them or not for them. So it's really a confusing offer in a sense. Like people can't even say, well, what is this? They can't. Now, I'm not saying that you can't. Like, I think certain things can help you with that, like naming it so there's a little bit of obvious and a little bit of poetry. You know, I know people like to be like cool with their names and stuff. But I like it. I like there to be at least some hint of what something is about, and many of the teachers that I've had over the years have said if someone is confused, they're not going to buy.
Right.
So that's kind of what it comes down to with that. Other mistakes are anything. There's like a ton of tech back end mistakes that can happen, and I think those even happen when you're prepared. But I think honestly, I've been mostly focused recently on helping people deal with this whole audience thing. Like, who are they talking to with their product about, you know, whatever their offer is, if it's a product, a service, making sure that they are getting the interaction and making sure that they can actually say, yep, people have been retweeting it, tweeting it, emailing me, you know, sharing it for me, whatever, you know, so that you know that there's some interest there. And I think that not doing what you were just talking about, that obvious reaching out to people, is you got to do that. You got to do that. And an easy way to find out if your product is actually ready and people are going to want it, start talking about it first. But in certain groups of people, let's say you're a yoga teacher, or you want to improve your yoga business, you're like seeing a lot of other people talk about that too. Like, actually, that's not a good example. Scratch that. But basically, look for people who are struggling with what you teach, and where are they along their line of figuring that out? Like maybe they just started their yoga business. I'm thinking about your wife. Maybe they just started their yoga business and they're working in a studio, but they want to break off. So their whole struggle is, how do we break off and I have my own yoga practice so that I don't have to depend on a studio? Or maybe they're already doing that, but they want to build a physical space, and you're like, oh, I can help with that. So I would just say, go to where you think your peeps are and just make a guess. And just go there and start kind of watching, because that, I feel like, is why Fearless Launching worked. Because I had two very big customer bases that I was watching like a hawk. I was like, creating fame, they're all wondering how to launch something. They don't even have a process. They have no idea. They don't know what to do next. B-School. Okay, there is a launch bonus at the end, and it's a really good one, but it doesn't really take them through the process in depth. Okay. So I was just looking at other people's customer bases as, how can I be the next thing in their learning path?
Okay. Yeah. That's so key. Yeah, that's a good lesson in how to find your sweet spot, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't have
to. But
I
think the customer, I'm honing in on this whole, like, know who you're talking to, because that really is by far the biggest mistake, is that. And I feel like the tech mistakes can be fixed.
Yeah.
Those things are easy to fix in comparison to not knowing your audience.
That's good. That's really good. I've been in those shoes before, where I've thought, oh, this has got to be my audience, because, you know, this was me at one point. But I was able to get a lot more clear on that by doing just what you said, you know, listening to what people were saying in emails and comments on my blog. And after a while, and the other great thing too, that, you know, I want to mention is, when you get started, say you are working for somebody else, and, you know, a blog is an easy thing to start. If you start blogging and building your list, you know, you'll find that resonance with people on certain subjects. Like
Yeah.
you'll get 2 comments on one blog and you'll get maybe 20 on another.
Yeah.
And that is a great dialogue to start, really feeling for what people need while you're still working for someone else.
Yep.
So sorry about getting off on that tangent, but
No. It's true. It's like when you're working for someone else, it's like the writing bit is easy. Unless your job is writing during the day, maybe you'll struggle with that at night. But honestly, that's where I started.
Yeah. All right. Very, very good stuff.
Yeah,
And-
I know that there are other mistakes, and
Yeah.
I've experienced plenty of them, and I feel like I need to give you, like, should I give you another couple mistakes?
Sure.
Are you
Absolutely.
good?
Yeah. Do it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the other one that came to mind is not working by yourself,
Okay.
like in a little vacuum.
Yeah.
And this will lead to the customer problems, the e-commerce problems, the systems breakdowns. But if you have someone who kind of is your proofer in your eye,
Yeah.
then you have a much better chance of avoiding those breakdowns. So even if you can't hire someone, if you have a friend, like I had a friend my first launch who just happened to be not working, and she's like, "Oh, I'll help you." And so she was there with me. She was my launch confidant.
I love it.
That's what I called her, because I was able to call on her, and she was actually helping me manage the project. I was lucky though, because she's probably the only person who can project manage me, because that's what she does too. We worked together a long time ago. So don't work alone. Don't even try to do it alone.
Yeah. Cool.
That one? Okay, so one more. Let me think. One more. Oh, just proof. Proof all your links. Proof all your materials. Or you end up having to give people things for the price you had maybe 2 sessions ago or 2 rounds ago. And I know this personally, because I thought something was proofed, even this just recent launch, and it still mentioned something that was offered last year. And I honored it. I told her, I said, "Thanks for letting me know. We're removing that, and you can have that offer if you'd like." So.
Okay. Great. One of the things that I can see happening potentially is people might hear some of this and say, this launch business sounds like a lot, and I get it. I can learn it, but it might hold people back from launching sooner than maybe they should have or could have. Do you get that from your clients at all? And what do you say to them if you do?
Yeah, well, usually people want to launch like next week. I hear that a lot. Or in a couple of weeks. Do you think am I crazy? Maybe you are. Some people like, I'm thinking Jonathan Field, some people who have big audiences, they can decide, you know what, I'm going to launch something next week. I'm just going to email my list, and they sell it out, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But there are the rest of us who do have to plan that, and I always say to give yourself like a good chunk of time. Even 6 weeks is hard if you don't have something created. You have to kind of already be thinking about stuff, and even things like these big products you see, these big beautiful launches that you want to emulate, they don't happen even in 2 months or 3 months. They happen like they've been talking about it since the last launch, most likely, about what they're going to do. And I always just, I do push on the fact that you need that time. You need it, unless you've got the perfect audience that's already like sitting there with their credit cards and they want to buy what want to sign up, whatever. But most of us have to do work and do a little bit of hustling to get that ball rolling. So I do like giving, like, that's why fearless launching is 6 weeks, because literally that is the minimum that I even take for myself to do it. And I also say, though, I also tell those people, but yes, if you want to do, let's say your launch is an email launch and you have something that doesn't require you to have any technical website back-end set up and it's just a PayPal link, then perhaps you can launch in a couple of weeks. Maybe you can, but I do challenge them to go through the process of teasing the offer out, whatever it's going to be, even if it's just as a little PSs, And I do still tell them to go through the process of finding people who can help support them through that and still go through the process. And actually, what you were saying is that is actually a very common thing that people say when they come into Fearless Launching, because and the way that I used to have the program structured, you had to you got all the pieces and they were kind of building blocks.
Yeah.
That was my original intention, but I've recently changed it so that you get the overview right out of the gate. That means if you really wanted to, you got your checklist and you just go, girl. That's what I'm saying. You go. There are men in the program, but I tell them to go, girl, too. But honestly, I want to give people that because I know people are usually anxious to launch.
Yeah.
But there's always a little bit of heartache if you rush it.
Yeah.
And
angst and
yeah. But
errors.
And the worst thing is when someone wants to launch and it's because they need money. I'm like, oh Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's better to come from actually try to do some launches while you're still working, because then you won't feel like you're not going to not be able to pay your mortgage or your rent or whatever.
Yeah.
You're still eating.
Nothing like the added pressure of, oh God, I need this launch to work so I can not be evicted next month.
Exactly. This is my I don't want to be evicted launch. No pressure. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. So much good stuff. Unfortunately, we're down to wrapping things up here, and you've brought so many good things. Tell us this. This is partially for my curiosity as well, and I want others to know too. How often do you launch Fearless Launching Program? I know you just launched it, but how often do you do that throughout the year?
For the last couple of years, I've just done it 2 times a year, in the spring and the fall.
Okay.
But I have made some recent discoveries about the 2 different sessions and which one I think is somehow more successful, and it might just be beginning of the year, energy. Everybody's trying to get their stuff done, so they're more energetic. But but that could be changing, and I'm kind of playing around with some other ideas.
Okay.
That's all I can say. But 2 times a year right now.
Okay. All right. Got it. Keep us in waiting impatiently.
I know. I'm not even keeping a secret either. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, one thing I love to do towards the end of the show here is let people get to know something about you that's maybe unique that they otherwise wouldn't know. So what's your current favorite hobby, or maybe what's something that you've done that's really adventurous in the last 6 months?
The last 6 months?
Yeah.
I am not usually a live speaker or anything like that, but I actually even presented I kind of did a pitch of Fearless Launching to a room full of people that I didn't know, and to get business advice, to get the where's Fearless Launching going to go, and I wanted to get a completely anonymous perspective of it. So for me, that was adventurous. But if you mean real life stuff, like non-business,
why not go outside the box and do something non-business?
Oh my gosh. I decided I was going to be the art docent at my daughter's school, and I am not an art teacher of any kind, but they needed someone, and I just said, okay, let's do it. And that is an adventure. Every single month now, I teach that to the kids.
Got it. You're teaching kids Fearless Launching.
Fearless Launching while they're making clay pots. Yes.
I love it. Perfect. All right, great. I just want to mention one thing too. I'll let you talk about anything that's new and exciting for your business, but I downloaded your Launch Essentials Toolkit from your website, so I would encourage listeners and viewers to go check that out because it's an amazing resource at your site, which is AnneSamoilov.com, ANNESAMOILOV, one word, .com. awesome toolkit. But what's up for you next? What are you most excited about right now for your business and what's going on?
Well, I can't say exactly what it is, but like I can say that I was asked to be part of a really unique project that it's already happening. It's kind of a 6-month long intense thing, mastermind. But I was asked to contribute a course to that.
Okay.
So I feel like some of the things that are coming up, you're going to see me partnering with some people that are really, I respect really high. I mean, I really respect these people. Yeah. And then I'm doing some live event stuff now.
Nice.
It kind of happened because I gave away a bonus and I'm like, oh, it's a live event. I might as well sell a few more seats to that. So we'll see how that goes. But those are the things that are coming up, and just continuing what I'm doing, with Fearless Launching, coming up with different ways to teach about different things other than just launching.
Okay.
So.
Cool. All right. Well, launching is certainly your foundation right now, and it's a great one, and it's one that I've found I need help with, and I think a lot of people, especially newer entrepreneurs, could use a shortcut on how to just put all those pieces together to launch any aspect of their business, no matter what they've got going on. Great.
Totally.
Okay, cool. And lastly, easiest way for people to reach out to you, connect with you, would be what?
Yeah, no, I'm mostly connecting with people these days on Facebook, actually.
Okay, all right.
I'm finding a lot of people on Facebook. I'm on Twitter too.
Okay.
But and it's just my name.
Okay.
/ Anne Samoilov.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
And I'll link all that up in the show notes.
And by the way, if you do sign up for the toolkit and you respond to my first email, I always like to write back to people. So you can just email me directly. At this point, I'm still able to respond to most people.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Great. Anne, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been an amazing guest. You've shared so much wisdom about doing what can be really hard, which is stepping away from a job or beginning that process at least, as well as all of your fearless launching tips. So much appreciated. Thank you so much for being on the Startup Sessions today. It's been fun. And I guess I'll see you next week in Portland as well.
You will.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. We'll see you on next week's episode of the Startup Sessions. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey, if you enjoyed this interview, be sure to go to thestartupsessions.com and sign up to have the latest interviews delivered to your inbox weekly. All of these interviews are also offered on video at thestartupsessions.com, or get the audio version via the Startup Sessions podcast. Just hop on over to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast there. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I know that your time is valuable, so I do my very best to provide the most inspirational and actionable content for creating a meaningful business. I'll see you on the next episode of the Startup Sessions.